Hello, my name is Daniel Doring, and I am the chairman of the board for the Liberty Area Chamber of Commerce. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Candidate Forum and serve as your moderator for this evening. Our forum will begin with opening statements. The candidates will have 3 minutes each for their opening comments. Then we'll proceed to questions and answer segments in which they will have 1 minute to respond to each of the questions. The final segment, we will have closing statements, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to say their final words during their closing statements. During the 1 minute session, at the end of that, if the 1 minute is up, they will have a chance to finish that sentence before they are muted. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our introductions, and we will go down in alphabetical order by category. We'll start with the mayoral category first with Mayor Lyndall Britton.
Good evening. I'm Lyndall Brenton, candidate for mayor of the city of Liberty. I want to thank the Liberty Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting this forum, in particular Gail Potter, president, and Daniel Doring, chairman. I want to commend all of the candidates. Willingness to serve your community as an elected official is a serious commitment. And I want to say thank you to the great citizens of Liberty, especially those joining us tonight to become more informed before voting next Tuesday, April 6th, for the future leaders of our city. As the mayor, I am a proven leader. I believe my education, professional skills, civic experience, and contacts equip me to be the best candidate in this race to fulfill the responsibilities of mayor. My education, I hold a master's of business administration degree from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, undergraduate degree in business administration and accounting from William Jewell College, and K through 12 education in the Liberty Public Schools. My professional skills encompass a management career focused in finance, business and strategic planning, budgeting, financial forecasting, and analyses. My my fits for civic experience, I have proved effective quality leadership for the city of Liberty, previously serving as a city councilman and now mayor. I have a reputation as a thoughtful, analytical, and fair-minded decision maker, fostering excellent collaboration with the council, city staff, and community partners. Vital contacts include established relationships with citizens throughout the city, state legislators, and a good rapport with our community partners, including the Liberty School District, Liberty Hospital, William Jewell College, Missouri Department of Transportation, and many, many others. As candidate for mayor, I am results oriented. I am seeking re-election to continue the renaissance and unprecedented economic growth experienced in Liberty. During my tenure as mayor, delivered accomplishments include attracting over 1 billion, that's 1 billion of new growth and 2,000 new jobs, implemented the lowest city property tax levy rate in over a decade, opened the Liberty Commons Retail Center, replacing a derelict strip mall, completed major street upgrades, including interchanges at I-35 and M291, and reconstructed the Kansas Street M152 Gateway Corridor. Finished South Liberty Parkway, connecting I-35 on the west to M291 on the east. Rebuilt the historic square streetscape and subterranean infrastructure. Constructed a new animal shelter, replacing an outdated and inadequate facility. Renovated numerous parks in the community center, and stabilized water and sewer utility rates with a new wastewater treatment plant. To quote Ms. Potter, the chamber president, "We are a town rich in history, filled with civic pride and community spirit. We have a thriving business community and excellent quality of life with many opportunities for recreation and friendly, welcoming neighbors. These things do not happen by chance. It takes hard work. As your mayor, I remain dedicated to accomplishing the hard work necessary to continue moving Liberty forward as an outstanding place to live, work, shop, and play. Thank you. Enjoy meeting you all this evening."
All right, thank you, Lyndall. Our next is going to be council member from Ward 1 will be Harold Phillips. Harold, are you there with us?
Yeah. Are there other Mayor candidates?
Not here with us this evening, sir.
Well, then it's my turn.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Well, I also want to thank Gail Potter and you and the Liberty Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting this important event. When our family moved to Liberty, it was so I could serve as a minister at Second Baptist Church. Our daughter was 3 years old. A little did we know that Liberty would become our home as we were standing on a sidewalk watching the 1987 Fall Festival Parade go by. My wife has enjoyed teaching at Lewis and Clark with second graders for about 17 years, then followed that up with serving as a children's minister at our church for almost 10 years. For our daughter, it's a setting for 12 years of being enrolled and a part of Liberty Public Schools, and then a place to live and work after graduation. I ran for city council in 2005 because of personal interest in public service. And I like to tell my friends that Ward 1 has everything that makes Liberty distinctive. Thriving downtown, older neighborhoods, William Jewell College, Hallmark Distribution, the hospital, Liberty North High School, and Heartland Meadows. Liberty's grown and changed a lot in the time that we've been here. And I've gotten to be part of a lot of that, and it's been very fulfilling personally. As Mayor Brenton said, the better entrances and exits from Liberty on Kansas Street, on 291 crossing I-35, Liberty Commons, the Ford stamping plant, growth at Heartland Meadows, completion of the South Liberty Parkway. But I have to say that my great satisfaction of serving on the city council has been my good influence with specific projects. For example, working with a small group to initiate making Liberty a smoke-free city. Working with a small group to make the curse of payday lending less of a presence in Liberty. Working with the mayor, city council, and residents on a use tax that made possible the new animal shelter, parks improvement, the complete rehab of City Park, and a resource for sustainability that many other cities in Missouri just wish they had taken advantage of because of COVID. I also like being a champion for historic downtown Liberty with Vicki Vance and now with Jamison Howard. I believe these are challenging times that we live in. We need steady leadership in all levels of government. I also believe city government is the best model we have in America these days for government that actually works. We're fortunate to have what Mayor Brenton calls a highly functioning city council. I like to believe I'm part of what makes us work effectively. So because of challenging times, I plan to be part of steady leadership during the next 4 years, and I'm grateful to the residents of Ward 1 for that opportunity.
Thank you very much, Harold. All right, so moving on for City Council in Ward 2, and we will be doing these in alphabetical order. So we will be starting with Amanda Medlock.
Hi, my name is Amanda Medlock. I am seeking a seat for Ward 2, and I am the proud owner of Trinity Events in Liberty, which is where we've kind of built our roots, our office. And, you know, my qualifications and experience are kind of one and the same. I have personal experience from running my own business. You know, I'm very small business minded, and I think that that kind of resonates with a lot of our city. I think that this has traits similar to, you know, like budgeting and coordinating and prioritizing, but on a different scale. The reason that I'm seeking office is for multiple reasons. My dad was raised here in Liberty, as was I. So my parents chose to raise us, and I've chosen to raise my kids here as well. And I genuinely care about this town, and I want to make sure that it's a safe, prosperous place to live. I take a lot of pride in living here, and I think that other people do as well. And I just want that to continue. I also want to follow my parents' footsteps. Both of my parents have served on council now in Ward 2 for, I think, 12 years, going on 12 years now. My mom currently holds one of the seats in Ward 2. And I definitely have seen the amazing work that they've done, and I want to follow in their footsteps for sure. I also have seen, the devastating effects that COVID has had on our town, not just as a citizen, but also as a business owner. And I want to be part of the solution to make our town prosperous again. But overall, I'm excited to hear the questions for today, because I feel like this is going to give me a lot of insight into what concerns you guys have with our city and where our priorities lay. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Amanda. Our next candidate for City Council for Ward 2 is Kelly Wren Posel.
All right. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. Well, first of all, thank you to the Chamber for this opportunity. When I was considering running for City Council, I listed all the things I've cared about and worked for through the years. My husband asked me to take my name off that list and asked if I would vote for a person who had those credentials. I said yes, and that's why I decided to give it a shot. My parents and sister moved to Liberty in 1951. My husband, Matt, and I have lived in Ward 2 for 29 years in our historic home on Mill Street. We love our home and our neighborhood. And fun fact, Mr. W.O. Pitts, a former mayor of Liberty, built our house in 1909. Preserving our historic structures like the one Mr. Pitts built for us is something we shouldn't take for granted. Once these homes and buildings are gone, they're never coming back. Liberty has a rich architectural history, and it's our responsibility to protect it for generations to enjoy. I served on the Historic District Review Commission in Liberty for 12 years, so I'm very familiar with how the city commissions, the city council, the mayor, and the city staff all work together. We raised 3 children, Max, Molly, and Noah, in the Liberty School District. I was involved in their PTA, varsity baseball, the bell, soccer, debate, and theater. I graduated from Liberty High School and went to the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg. In my life, I've worked for a university, financial institutions, and insurance. I now work for a nonprofit, Center for Human Services here in Liberty. We coordinate services for people with developmental disabilities. I'm the president of the Jewel Neighborhood Group. Our group was the first to receive the Liberty Neighborhood Enhancement Grant, and a couple years ago, we received the grant again for our neighborhood. My treasurer, Cheryl McCann, several years ago found a grant to install sidewalks in Ward 2 for kids walking to Franklin, and I hope this is something like that can be done again regarding sidewalks in Ward 2. I hold leadership positions at my job and in volunteer organizations. I've been lucky to have an eclectic experience in my work life. I would like to help communities in Liberty who may feel their voices not heard. Women, minorities, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, and young people should know they're welcome and they belong. With that in mind, I would like to see a commission created to give them a voice in the city government. I believe we need to remove the Confederate statue in Fairview Cemetery. It was put there 117 years ago to intimidate and instill fear in Liberty's Black community. It literally cast in stone the idea that African Americans would never be equal here, and I believe it's way past due to come down. I'm also interested in seeing us make progress to address the corner I refer to as the black hole on the square. The building that collapsed there almost 5 years ago has left us with an eyesore that we now walk by without even seeing. I know we can work hard to move forward with an innovative plan to renew that corner of historic square. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. Our next candidate for Ward 2 for City Council is Adam Travis.
Hi, my name's Adam Travis, and I first want to start by thanking the council for hosting this forum and giving us a vehicle to really talk about the issues. I also want to thank those members of the community that have chosen to join us or those that will be viewing it afterward. It is a great commitment in which we look to the city and decide that we want to participate in government. And I think the one thing I can appreciate about all of us in Ward 2, the mayoral candidates and the incumbents that are continuing their service, is just how much of a commitment it takes to put yourself out there, but to have that passion to go forth and do things for the community. And for me, my passion does come from my history in the city as well. I've lived here since 2008 in the community. I got my first job here. I met my wife here. I've had both of my children here, and I continue to raise them and just continue to fall more and more in love with the city every day. I think when we look at what it takes to counsel, though, it goes beyond passion and really goes to, and I think the mayor hit on it well, the experience to handle the macroeconomics of the city. We're talking about a budget that's $42 million. We're talking about making decisions that are going to impact 250 full-time employees. We're talking about enhancements that are in the neighborhood of $200 million in public infrastructure. These aren't easy knowledge, skills, experiences, and ability to obtain. And I think that's where the strength of my candidacy really lies. I spent my entire career in public service with the federal government, handling progressively similar budgets. I've spent 13 years, first with the Department of Defense and then with the Department of Agriculture, looking at, opining, making decisions, and handling program implementation in the same materiality as all of these programs we run as a city. And the decisions we make, how we allocate funds down to get to that micro level where we are installing those sidewalks, where we're doing those services, where we're making those programs, really starts at a higher level than that. And I think that's where having that strong financial background will really make me an asset and a service to this community. I come featuring a CPA, a Certified Information Systems Auditor designation, contract oversight, technical representation certifications, and work in the past. I come as a master's in business administration from Northwest Missouri State. I bring you a bachelor's of science in accounting from Northwest Missouri State. I am a graduate of the Maple Woods Community College programs we have through the A+ programs our schools provide. What I can bring to this city is an input on conversations. When we start talking to the finance director, when we start talking to the technology director, when we start making those big decisions on how to fund, how to move forward this city, my experience will give a voice that has quality impact on the ward because of my understanding of the issues and my ability to portray them in a way beneficial to us. I thank you, and I hope I can earn your vote.
Thank you very much, Adam. All right, so moving on, City Council Ward 3, we have Jeff Watt.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, we've heard it many times here, but it's very important. Thank you to the chamber, Gail, and the staff for allowing all of us to speak here tonight and have a good conversation, a good forum. As we've heard several talk already, Mayor Brenton, with the good things we've done together, I've had the pleasure, like with Councilman Phillips, I've been on for 12 years. We've seen a lot of good improvements, a lot of good changes within this community. Being the representative for the 3rd Ward, it is very important that I'm listening to my constituents and I'm helping to relay the concerns within my ward. Again, within what we're looking on, there's a lot of the new growth that has been happening within the city, bringing the Ford stamping plant here to help cement the livelihood of the Kansas City Assembly plant. Being on the committee and the task force to build our wastewater treatment plant. Yes, it's not specifically a 3rd Ward, but it directly impacts the 3rd Ward residents. And by us being able to set up our own destiny and to get away from Kansas City and to control our rates, we really feel we're doing a good service to our residents and bringing them a better community. Excuse me. As well, we also have a lot of new things with our South Liberty Parkway, between the 6935 interchange being rebuilt with the parkway itself, and then getting the continuation over to 291. We now have a very nice east-west corridor that is different from Kansas and allows the south side of our community to be able to progress or ingress, egress from the community without going through the Kansas corridor and easing our traffic congestion. We're also seeing a lot of job opportunities with our open field down to the south with some new industrial developments. And again, proud to say those are within the 3rd Ward to help bring between 3,000 and 4,000 jobs to our community. So again, we're getting some very nice impacts from this. My goal, again, of the 3rd Ward I want to do is to help bring more connections. You know, we have the improvements made to the Westboro Canterbury Greenway, also to the other smaller neighborhood parks that we have, also getting some additional walking trails to make some pedestrian connections within town. So again, we can find alternate ways. So those are just many of the things I want us to see us continue here over the next 4 years with being reelected. And again, with everyone's support, we can continue doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right. City Council, Ward 4, we have Jean Gentrip.
I am here. Do I have some video?
We cannot see you, sir, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'm starting my video. There we are.
There you are. Yes, sir.
Hi, folks. My name is Gene Gentrup, and I am the current one of the 2 Ward 4 councilmen serving on the city council. I want to thank Gail and Daniel and the Liberty Chamber for this opportunity. I was first elected in 2013 and filed for another term because I sincerely believe in the noble cause of public service. I have a background first as a newspaper reporter covering forums like this one, regularly covered city council and county governments in the past, including Clay County. These days, I am the co-owner of I9 Sports and know the challenges of running a small business, especially in this last year. I am privileged to be on the board of Meals on Wheels, which is now serving more senior citizens than ever. Before I came onto the council, I participated in a citizen-led strategic planning process called Liberty for All. And in that process, there were many goals, some goals that some folks thought maybe were unattainable. But I'm proud to say that in the last 8 years, while I was on the council, some of those important goals have been achieved. The big one in Ward 4 and the rest of the city is completion of South Liberty Parkway. When I campaigned 8 years ago, I would mention that as my number 1 priority, and I would hear the same response from people. They would say, "We've been hearing that for years. Oh, sure, that's going to be completed. We'll see it when we'll believe it when we see it." And with the collaborative work of the city council and staff, we did get that done. And of course, with the support of Liberty voters, it was accomplished. Another important goal was a public safety sales tax. Liberty police officers, firefighters have been underpaid, and we've been losing them. We've been investing in their training only to see them go to better opportunities, oftentimes at cities that are smaller than Liberty. The public safety sales tax, which voters supported overwhelmingly, was one answer to addressing that problem. There are many other accomplishments already mentioned, downtown revitalization, of course, addressing the traffic congestion at multiple points, choking points in Liberty, redoing the I-35 interchanges at 291 Highway, Kansas Street, South Liberty Parkway. City Park is getting a new look, and amenities have been added to neighborhoods, parks across the city. The animal shelter, of course, is a big project as well. What I am most proud and more current, and something I had nothing to do with, but the leadership of staff, city staff, and the mayor organizing Operation Safe and the role in it. That project has been nothing short of phenomenal at a most critical time and should be a source of pride for all of Liberty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gene. All right, so we had one more mayoral candidate that had come in. I don't know if he's having technical difficulties or not, but that was Damian Jones. We're going to try to get him back in real quick to see if he wants to do any opening statements, and then we will move on to our questions section. Just a quick reminder for everyone, we are going to try to do 5 to 7 different questions during this segment. Each candidate was selected by a random lot as to when they will answer those particular questions. So when you have your 1 minute, I will call on the next candidate to answer that same question, and we'll go all the way through until we've had a chance to get through those questions and everyone's had a chance to answer. At that time, then we'll go to the next question and we will do a different order for answering of the next question, and then so on and so forth as we go down. So It does not look like Damien is able to pop back in with us here. So let us, hang on one second here. All right, okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on with question number 1 at this time, okay? So this question will be for all of the candidates, and then I will give you the order in which you will be able to answer those, okay? So question number 1 will be, will you support appointment of a task force to assess and address the level of racial inclusiveness in Liberty? And if not, why? And for that first question, we will start with Kelly first.
Okay, here we are. Absolutely. That is one of the things I feel like I'm running on, is it diversity, inclusiveness, and equity in Liberty. And I feel like there should be a task force or a commission that could come and report to the city government, particularly, as I mentioned in my opening statement, for not only minorities, but women, LGBTQ, young people, and people with disabilities. Anyone who feels like they don't have a voice right now in Liberty, I feel like this would be a wonderful thing to do in Liberty. And I would absolutely endorse that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Adam, please.
Thank you. Yes, I would absolutely agree that a commission and task force on which we try to make sure inclusiveness is at the center and foundation of our community. A community that's empathetic, a community that has its ears open, is listening to the community, is a community at its best. And I think getting the voices of all members, especially our underrepresented members, is incredibly important. When you consider the composition that we are almost 85 to 95% Caucasian in this community, it does mean that we need to take extra effort to get the voices of others heard. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Lyndall.
Yes, I'd be in favor of a task force. And interestingly, I've already convened a small group related to the monument and the cemetery. Met several times with both sides of the issue, with 4 people representing they want it removed, and 4 people who want the statue to stay. And I think in those conversations, it became evident that there's a lot more opportunity for us to hear one another and what our concerns are, what we feel like the voices that maybe aren't being heard. We listen a lot, but I'm not sure we hear a lot. So yes, I'd be in favor of a task force to open up that dialogue.
All right, thank you. Jean, next up, please. Jean.
Without question, I would be in favor of that. And I think this is an issue that really has come to the forefront in the past year, revolving mostly around the Confederate monument in Fairview Cemetery. And I know people have kind of brushed off the idea that this is a problem. They've been kind of saying that, gosh, no one's really complained about it. Now all of a sudden everyone's complaining about it. I think people have not said much because of the history. You know, in 1904, when that monument was unveiled, there wasn't a lot of protests going on. Maybe it had something to do with the lynching in 1902. Maybe it had something to do with the Ku Klux Klan convention in Kansas City, you know, about 10 or 15 years later. Maybe it had something to do with the civil rights movement, with the assassination of Reverend King. There's a lot of reasons people have not spoken up. And frankly, if we're honest with ourselves, a lot has been said. We just have not been listening, and it's time we started. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Amanda.
Hi, yes, I 100% agree with what everyone has said so far. I think that the more people that you have in our community speaking, the better. I think everyone's voice should be heard. And I think that now, especially more than ever, we need to make sure that we are listening to the voices of others. I think that we need to make sure we're empathetic to others. And at the end of the day, I think what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. So this is a great way to strengthen that system.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Harold.
Great question. I picked up a copy of the 1930 city plan that the consultants had provided. Here's what it says on page 6. The Negro population always presents an important problem in the development of a city. Negroes are a useful element and provision should be made for their welfare. We should be careful for neither race to encroach upon the other. It's recommended this be controlled by mutual agreement between the races. Scattering into other portions of the city should be discouraged. Yes, we should do that. As one friend has said, told me about dealing specifically with the Confederate monument, it's not a black problem, it's a white problem. And the bigger point on that, moving beyond just racial issues, is for majority populations, the difficulty is to listen and to hear and to learn and gain deeper understanding. And that's what we need to do as a city, just because we are in challenging times and we need steady leadership to get us through that and to listen.
Thank you very much. And Jeff.
As we've heard with others, I'm in support. Yeah, let's put together a task force. Let's get some background found. Let's see exactly where the concerns are, and let's find out, again, as a whole, what are we missing? Where are we missing the concerns? It's very important that each of us that's on this panel tonight being interviewed listen. It's important those of us that are not up for election to listen. And that's one of the important parts that I have done. I run a very busy, active city council Facebook page. I have over 4,000 folks that follow and chat with me. And I have had one-on-one meetings with many, many folks of all races in this community, finding out concerns and problems. And I've been directly addressing them within staff City Hall when we have those conflicts and the concerns, and trying to help bring those voices together. And I think we need to do it individually and we need to do it collectively. And if the task force brings us there, I say it's a good idea.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And Damien, are you available? Are you there now?
Hey, yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Excellent, excellent. I'm going to give you a moment to kind of introduce yourself. Once we finish this question, I'll go ahead and let you hear the question, and then you'll have 1 minute to respond on that. And then after that, we'll give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself and everything. So the question that everyone else was answering was, will you support appointment of a task force to assess and address the level of racial inclusiveness in Liberty? And if not, why?
Sure. Can you see my video?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Oh, now I can't. Your video is gone,
sorry.
but I can hear you. There,
Great.
now you're back.
Yeah. As far as a task force, I'm not sure that is something we need. As far as racial inequality, it's something that we need. But
All right. So it appears that we have lost Damien again. We'll see if he can jump back in there or not. But while we're waiting to kind of figure that out, let's move on. Let's go ahead and move on to question number 2, if everyone is ready for question number 2. So question number 2 will be, briefly outline your vision for the future economic development in Liberty. One more time, briefly outline your vision for future economic development in Liberty. And we will start question 2 off with Harold.
Okay, there we go. I could think briefly, the vision that I would suggest is that it's working with a wonderful staff, a competent mayor and city council, along with our community partners. The LEDC, we've got a wonderful Chamber of Commerce, we've got a vibrant historic downtown Liberty group that can help us to work on where we need to be going, things we need to be doing, whether it's expanding Heartland Meadows and those kind of things that need to be done, how South Liberty Parkway develops. Those are the kind of things we need to be doing. And we are blessed to have some wonderful partners to collaborate with us in all of that.
All right, thank you. Next will be Jeff.
This is a great question. Thank you for who posed this. Future economic development, as it's been taught to us, like with Gene, Councilman Gentrup, I was on the Liberty for All program many years ago now. And one of the things we learn is a community operates on kind of what's called a three-legged stool. You have your jobs, you have your homes, and you have your retail, your commercial. And we did a really good job of getting our retail redeveloped and reestablished in this community. We got our home stabilized, and now we're beginning to see the jobs. So for the future, we need to look collectively, again, through our partners, but we need to make sure we do it in the right way. We need to make sure we're keeping a good, fair balance of jobs, homes, and businesses. We need to make sure that when developments are brought to the table, that we have our partners as a school district. For every home that comes in, there's probably going to be a child. We need to make sure our schools are ready to go with that. So we need to have that together. We need to also talk with I'll call them our established employers, Hallmark, Ford, the school district, the hospital, William Jewell College. All of these folks have key stakes, key interests in what we try to do and the goals and the visions we want. And economic development around the city is what helps keep our downtown vital and brings it all together. Many call downtown the heartbeat, but it takes the periphery of our community to make it all whole.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Adam.
Yes. Sorry, there we go. Yes. I think the main thing I'd like to point out is, first off, I'm in agreement with some of the incredible statements made by our other fellow councilmen, and that they really have a great pulse for where we are. I think one of the biggest challenges we have going into this 2021 and through 2023 is we're really almost going to, in many ways, redefine what it means to be business as we open up the community. Are we going to see more virtual work sites? Are we going to see less demand for certain attributes and more demand for additional attributes? And I think that's where it's very important that we as a community stay ahead, really dive ourselves into the data and make sure we're adapting and setting ourselves up for success in what's this new post-pandemic economy. When we look at that, we don't want to be retroactive, we want to be proactive so that we can stay ahead and continue to build that three legs as Jeff identified. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Lyndall.
There. Well, I think the two councilmen in particular hit the nail on the head pretty well, but it's a balance. 8 years ago when I became mayor, we were woefully short of housing stock and inventory. I appointed a task force. Councilman Watt was on that task force. We met with a lot of home developers, and as you've seen, the housing stock in this community has increased significantly and has quite a bit more opportunity. 2 years ago, we were woefully short of industrial space, and we were suffering kind of a malaise of jobs. 2 years later, now we have 700,000 square foot of industrial space under roof. We have another 4 million square foot of industrial space, and those jobs that will be developed east of the stamping plant and south of South Liberty Parkway. So we just always are working the issues and keeping a balance between homes, jobs, and retail, commercial businesses. And as has been pointed out, with a concern for quality of life and engagement of our community partners.
Thank you. Gene.
Yes, thank you. When I came onto the council 8 years ago, I remember our economic development director, Karen Johnson. I was participating in the Clay County Economic Development Council process, and we had a lot of conversations regarding Liberty's footing in the economic development world. And what she told me has always stuck with me. She says, industry wants to move to Liberty. They need a place to move to. And we had nothing. Industry did not want to take the time to plan and build and move in 8 to 12 months later. They wanted to move immediately. We needed spec buildings, and it took a while, but now you're seeing spec buildings go up quickly. I'll mention the Opus building in Heartland Meadows that's under construction, the Liberty Logistics Center at South Liberty Parkway and I-35 that is now beginning to open. And then the Broad Acres development south of South Liberty Parkway near Withers Road, construction maybe is or is about to start. These are all important projects that are occurring because we recognize the need, and it's happening. And I do remember Councilman Watt and Mayor Brenton mentioned the process for residential building. I remember being at the Coffee and Donuts one morning where we had the home builders in one room, and we basically said, look, Liberty is open for business. What can we do for you? And we streamline the process. These are matters that the council has taken seriously and has delivered, and the results are, the proof is in the pudding.
All right, thank you. Next up will be Amanda.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I 100% agree with what everyone has said so far. I think that it collectively, through our partners, we need to, but we need to do this, but make sure that we're balanced so we aren't overburdened and drain our city and its resources. I do think that one of the big things that we need to do is make sure that our Kansas Street corridor and the 291 corridors stay vibrant and inviting to visitors. I think this will help create a welcoming environment for residents and non-residents, all of whom want to come into our town and enjoy our entertainment and shop here, dine here. This ultimately creates a flourishing town that will boost the morale of its visitors and the people that live here. I think that that's kind of, I think, a huge point for Ward 2.
All right, thank you. And Kelly.
Actually, yeah, I think, well, first of all, what everyone has said, I totally agree with, working with community partners like William Jewell, the school district, that's huge. And I think expansion of the Liberty Triangle and downtown Liberty, and this is where I bring in my black hole comment. I think if we can come up with an innovative plan for where the building collapsed 5 years ago, that property that could house like at least five or six businesses, small, large, whatever, because it did in the past. In the early 1900s, there were about 6 businesses on that property. And I think this is a perfect way to expand by building back our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so moving on to question number 3, and everyone would get a chance to answer this one in a different order. So question number 3, what is each candidate's position on protecting free speech? Again, one more time, what is each candidate's position on protecting free speech? And for this one, we will start with Adam.
All righty, can you see me and hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
I mean, free speech obviously is, I mean, we're talking constitutional rights here. Not 100% sure where the questioner is coming from on this, but I can certainly say that we at the city level should not and would not be allowed to do anything that would violate that right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Gene.
Well, I'm absolutely for free speech, but you still can't yell fire in a crowded theater. I think I'm going to guess the question has to do with the Confederate monument. And on the Confederate monuments case, there are state laws that give cities the right to regulate public cemeteries. And right now, the city council is pursuing revestment of that Confederate monument. And while some people think it's free speech, some people also think it's hate speech. Being in a public cemetery, there are some methods for the city to address that. And we will pursue that within the letter of the law.
All right, thank you. Kelly.
Yes, absolutely want to protect free speech. I'm a member of the DAR, and you know, I come from people that actually fought in the American Revolution. So, you know, that kind of thing is very important to me. And I would agree with Jean that obviously you can't say fire in a crowded theater. That's, everybody knows that. So of course, I'm for free speech. No one would, I can't imagine why anyone would not be. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda.
Just to kind of bounce off of exactly what everyone's been saying, absolutely. I think, you know, it's our First Amendment right. It's a constitutional right. It's what makes our country so amazing is freedom of speech. And even if you have a difference of opinion from, you know, the person sitting to your left or to your right, it doesn't matter. Everybody deserves the right to speak freely.
Right. Thank you. Next, Jeff.
I'm a firm believer of free speech. I'm an Army veteran. I was fought in war, again, for the rights and the freedoms of our country. Free speech is free speech. We don't always like it, but it is what it is. Again, one of the correlations I'll give is, again, with my city council Facebook page. I get a lot of folks on it that don't like some of the posts that I do. And again, it's free speech. I don't edit them. I don't delete them. I don't block them. If you want to take the time and go back several years ago before we started the Kansas Street and the 152 I-35 bridge, I had someone that was very, very profuse with me in their anger and their frustration. And those posts are still there. I have never removed them. I never will, because again, it's free speech. And my belief is, yeah, you have the right to speak, and I have the right to speak as well. And that regardless of the conversations we're having.
All right, thank you. Next is Harold.
This is a ninth grade civics class, it sounds like. As a very passionate Baptist Christian, not only is there free speech, but there's freedom of religion and freedom from religion as well. So yes, freedom of speech is a gift that we've got, even if it includes burning a flag. I talked with a scout about that in one of his merit badge things that he was working on, and asked, can I burn an American flag? And it was kind of a trick question, and his mom caught on to what was going on. But that's how extreme I would go as far as freedom of speech. But you countered that with what Mr. Gintrup pointed out: you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. So that's where you go. But if you ask me, it's freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and probably take that even to levels that would make some people uncomfortable, including myself.
All right, thank you. And Lyndall.
Yes, I believe in all the bedrock principles of the Constitution. I believe in the processes that are in the Constitution as remedies if people feel that some of their rights are being infringed upon. I mean, after all, we live in a city named Liberty. And, if you bring this to a local level, nuts and bolts, every council session, we have a citizen's participation where any citizen can come and speak to us in any manner, in any matter that's on their mind. And that's always open to the public. Every Monday night, we meet at 7 o'clock in voting sessions. And we also abide by all of the sunshine laws in the state of Missouri to make sure that citizens have unfettered access to the decision-making processes and provide their input and their voice in that. So absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. So that wraps up everyone's answers for question number 3. Moving on to question number 4. How do you feel about raising property taxes in order to raise more funds to boost city services like police, fire, and public works? One more time, how do you feel about raising property taxes in order to raise more funds to boost city services like police, fire, and public works? And for this one, we are going to start question 4 off with Lyndall.
We fund city services through a balance of taxes, sales taxes, and property taxes. At this time, I'm opposed to raising property taxes, which are paid solely by property owners in the city of Liberty. There are folks every day that are in our community, whether they work here, visit here, shop here, that take advantage of city services, whether that be public safety, our streets. So I feel like that there's a responsibility for those folks to shoulder some of the burden for paying for city services as well. And that is done through sales taxes, which are paid by those people as well as residents here. But I think raising property taxes would inappropriately overburden property owners in this city and in fact, actually perhaps subsidize providing city services to other individuals that don't own property here, but either spend a lot of their time here shopping, visiting. And so, no, I would be opposed to raising property taxes.
All right, thank you. Kelly. Kelly, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry, I thought I clicked it. I feel like raising property taxes is something that you have to look at later to see, how do I put this? You never know what how circumstances are going to change. Right now, I think they're probably a little bit high. I know people talk about Liberty property taxes being high, but we also have a really good city and we need those taxes for a reason. And I know that I believe that the police and fire, I believe they need higher salaries. I'm not sure what the best way is to do that. I know that's something I would have to do a lot of listening to with city staff and the council people that are already on the council. I've never been on the council before, so I would have to be listening to the people that know the budget and make a decision from there. Right now, it's probably not a good idea, but I think that's something that you have to realize down the line, circumstances may change. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Harold.
Thank you. For me, this is a great question. And one of the wisdom items I've learned from Mayor Brenton is, if you keep the property taxes here, you can go after these small, specific sales tax agenda kind of items to do the things that we need to do. And it's true that everybody gets to pay the sales tax, whether they're in or outside of the city. The flip side is that a sales tax that is probably reaching sticker shock level is less of a burden for someone like me financially than it is for other people financially. And so there's that balance between sales tax, which is an equal burden on everybody, regardless of their economic strata, property tax, which is a bigger burden just on the people who live in Liberty. It's a fine balance to deal with. I wouldn't want to say I would never want to increase property tax, but I am certainly aware that we need to look at sustainability for the long term for our community.
Thank you. Adam.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. All right, this is a great question. And I think really what it comes down to is we're isolating property tax outside the entire portfolio. But I think to what Lyndall and Harold have even indicated is it's really about balancing that portfolio. We have a great natural resource, if you will, in the 35 corridor, which creates tons of shopping, the use of butting up against the Kansas City and a high population of individuals who aren't property tax eligible, but would be sales tax eligible to our community. And we have to be cognizant not to shift the burden of city services from them over to our Liberty residents, while also to Councilor Phillips' point, make sure we're not unduly burdening the poorer in the community who to absorb a higher burden of a sales tax, as well as keeping our small business and our larger businesses competitive because they do have other shopping options. So I think really what you're looking at is a portfolio. You never want to take an arrow out of your quiver, if you will. You never want to take an option away or say we wouldn't have to. But I think it's all about balancing that portfolio to create the right revenue streams, to create the value added to the tax individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. Gene.
Well, I'm one of those people that says never say never. That being said, in the 8 years I've been on the council, we have not increased property taxes. And in my mind, a big reason is because our school district is heavily dependent on property taxes, and they have a pretty high levy that's necessary to fund their day-to-day activities. Liberty has been good about watching its finances, about going to voters with some special sales taxes, which voters have approved. They recognize the need, and they've supported those sales taxes. Each year, the city goes through this process. It's a meticulous, long-lasting process involving city staff, involving the city budget committee, and then eventually the city council. And they've done a great job of avoiding increases in property taxes. And so for now, especially as the economy is rebounding, I just don't see a need to do so.
Right, thank you. Jeff.
One of the biggest comments I get all the time, especially come February and March of each year when property tax bills start coming in through folks' escrow accounts for their homes. And the complaints are, why is Liberty making my taxes so high, my property tax? And I'll ask them to look at the breakdown and to see where it's coming from. 75 to 80% of your property tax goes to the school district. And as Councilman Gentrup made the comment on, and I believe a couple of others, because of that, and Mayor Brenton here too, we have done our best to stay away from property tax for the city, maintaining a level status and using the sales tax for our leverage that we need to operate our daily services. And as we heard here, because a large part of the region shops in Liberty, the sales tax allows us to gather the fees that we need from more than just our residents and trying to help lessen the pain and the burden. If the day would ever come that we need to reassess for some reason or another, again, we have a budget committee for this reason. The 3-member budget committee works heavy and hard with our finance department and others. Where are we? Where are we short? Where are we strong? And we can find that best balanced approach to move forward. And that's the position we've got to look at and work from.
Thank you. And Amanda.
Yes, I 100% agree with what Jeff just said. I think that, just in general, I'm opposed to it as an easy fix. I think that City Council has worked really hard to balance property tax and sales tax for Liberty residents because the school district relies on property tax that the council has worked hard to not raise, and they've done this for the past 10 years. At the same time, council has leveraged sales tax, which is paid by anyone shopping in Liberty. So, just to support city operations. I would say this because before anything happens to taxes in Liberty, I think we as a council need to look at the big picture and not just focus on one. And this is exactly why we have a budget committee to dig deep into those sort of issues and questions, and I will listen strongly to them. And I also think, just to quote my dad, he would say that, you need to look at every option to see if we can cut the fat out of the budget. So.
All right. Thank you very much. So let's go ahead. We will move on with question number 5. And question number 5 is, what is each candidate's stance on protecting the Second Amendment rights? One more time, what is each candidate's stance on protecting the Second Amendment rights? And we will start this one off with Damien. Are you there, Damien?
Oh, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Great. The Second Amendment right is something that we as American citizens have granted to us by Congress. To take that away from us is something that things in the media
Damon, I think we might be having some technical
try to
issues with the
demonize.
audio. Oh, there you are.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can, yes. We were breaking up for a moment there, but we can hear you.
Sorry,
again.
Yep. I am definitely for the rights to bear arms.
All right. Okay. Let's move on to our next candidate. I think we will go to Jeff next. Jeff?
Yes, I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I have owned a gun, since I was a teenager. I've been respectful through it. I have gone through the necessary trainings and learning how to respect a firearm, how to use a firearm. Obviously, being in the military, I've used quite a few there as well. And again, this is more than just a local question. This is more of a national, where the Second Amendment and things are taken care of with our Constitution. But I am in full support.
All right. Thank you very much. Amanda?
Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I agree 100% with Jeff. I think that, it's our Second Amendment right to bear arms, and it's definitely not, it's looked at a federal level and not for us. And I think, the same goes with the First Amendment. When someone asked, do you encourage free speech? Absolutely. I support the First Amendment. I support the Second Amendment. It's how our Constitution was written. It's what our country was built on. So I 100% support that.
Thank you. Gene?
Well, of course, I support the Second Amendment. I also support common sense gun regulations that can alleviate some of the tragedies we've been seeing. I guess what has always bothered me is while I support the ownership of guns, I am a firm believer in hunting. In fact, I think hunting is necessary for animal control population and as a sport. Where I have a problem with is at what point does a gun become something else? At what point does it become a machine so lethal that someone can walk into a classroom and slaughter 20 kids in a matter of seconds? That's where you lose me. And that's where I think we can do better as a nation, as a country. And that's where the Second Amendment has some problems that can be addressed.
All right, thank you. Harold.
I don't think I can be any more articulate than what Gene has articulated. I think we're dealing with a valid topic that has code language going on by everybody who's got a preconceived agenda. But just as you don't yell fire in a crowded theater, does a hunter need a machine gun? And all the kind of things that go on with that. It's like, where do you do common sense and where do you do safety? I'm not interested in other words that often get identified with the word gun, but as far as protecting Second Amendment, absolutely. It's been there all along. I have no problem with that. And to add one more thing, any dealing with that topic would need to be on a regional level. It's not just something one little city right here is going to do something and address a problem. To the extent there can be consensus, there is a problem.
Thank you. Kelly.
Well, yes, of course. I guess what I should say is I don't hold the Second Amendment in any higher regard than I do any other amendment. It's there, it's legal. However, a person's right to bear arms does not preclude my right to live. And I don't own a gun. I don't care to. I never will. I don't care if other people do. That's fine with me. And nobody's taken away their guns. I'm a member of, actually, I'm a leader in Moms Demand Action for a Gun Sense in America. And I've been a leader for 3 years. And we have 6 million supporters, basically more than the NRA. And our thing is we have gun owners, we have gun violence survivors, and we all work together to get safety, good, common sense, safe laws all over the United States and different states. And we're doing it. It's happening. But as far as the Second Amendment, I hold it in no higher regard than any other amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Lyndall.
Well, I'll say it again. I believe in the bedrock principles of the Constitution. I also believe in what the founders provided us to amend, interpret, and administer that Constitution, and will enforce all laws of the state and the federal government related to any amendment or constitutional guarantee. And as someone said, I don't know that this is necessarily going to be a local issue, but I will also say it again. We live in a city-lane liberty, and with that are the principles that our founders built this country 200 plus years ago.
Thank you. And Adam.
All right, let me wrap us up on this one. I think it's been stated very well that the Second Amendment is constitutionally guaranteed. I am myself a gun owner. I have taken the safety and regulatory classes to make sure that I am a responsible gun owner. I am teaching my kids proper gun safety so they can be responsible gun owners. There is nothing about liberty, about our city in terms of violent or gun-related crimes that would make it conceivable that this should be a local issue and that this needs to be handled at a national or state level. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. So this next question will be our final question of the evening. before we let each of our candidates finish with their 2-minute closing comments. So our final question of the evening is, how would you propose to increase services from fire and police? One more time, how would you propose to increase services from fire and police? And for this one, we're going to start off with Gene.
Yeah, that's, thanks for leading me off on that one. It's a great question. You know, when we, a few years ago, promoted and campaigned on behalf of the public safety sales tax, and voters overwhelmingly approved it, we made some strides. We added people to the force. But here we are again, where we have some of our best police officers, our best firefighters leaving the city and going elsewhere. The problem hasn't gone away. How do we solve that problem? You know, I'll be honest with you, I don't have that answer for you, but I know it's something that we will look at. We can't come back to voters and just keep asking them to increase taxes. That's not a sustainable solution. We'll have to look at that. I think that is a plan on the 2021 agenda, whether we're meeting by Zoom or in person, but it's something that we have to address, because it makes no sense investing so much time and money in police and fire and frankly other city positions, only to see them leave and go on and work for other cities.
All right, thank you. Next is Lyndall.
Well, in 2013, I championed the passage of the public safety sales tax in 2017, which helped us hire additional personnel in public safety, as well as take care of entry-level compensation and what's called compression, or basically maintaining the outstanding professionals that we have already on our staff. Since then, the market for public safety personnel, frankly, has grown faster than the economy has grown. And so that creates a little bit of a problem. But we are growing our tax base here in the city of Liberty. And in January of this year, we made a significant change to the wage and compensation for our public safety personnel as a result of that tax base growth. And again, I think we are market competitive. We're certainly not at the bottom. We are not at the top, but we are market competitive, and we will continue to do everything in our powers to grow the tax base. I think that's the sustainable long-term solution. And for sure, the public safety personnel are a critical concern that as a chair of the budget committee, I deal with and the city staff deals with on a regular basis. So it is always right at the top of our radar to make sure public safety personnel and all of our personnel are compensated adequately to draw good people and to retain the outstanding folks we have on our staff.
Thank you. Harold.
Thank you. This is a tough question. How do you attract and also retain the kind of quality personnel that you want to be representing your city, certainly during times of crisis and emergency? So that's the bigger challenge. I don't know that we need more. We just need more compensation to help us to do those attraction and retention parts. My understanding is that as some resources become available, that's going to help us to stay steady. My understanding also is that Mayor Brenton has one of his goals is how do we develop some kind of a sustainability plan that will take us beyond working for yet one more small sales tax, one more sales tax to meet a specific thing, but kind of to address a larger picture. That again would be where I think I could be a helpful part of supporting a solution that's going to move us toward that.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yes, one of the biggest things that we all need to keep in mind as we look at, again, the question, how do we propose to increase services in fire and police, is we need to, speak with and listen to our police chief and our fire chief. Those two are hired to help make these ultimate decisions for our community. Going back to when I was on 12 years ago, one of the retention problems we had at the fire department was old and outdated equipment. We had three different pumpers that were all different models. We had ambulances with different models. One of the things proposed by Chief Snyder at the time was an equipment replacement plan. So we brought in 4 new ambulances, 3 that are on full-time and a 4th reserve, so we get less fatigue. We have 3 pumpers that are identical in our ladder truck. And that has actually helped to increase our staff retention at that time. Same thing with police, they were getting tired. Now we rotate 3 vehicles at a time, but now we're getting challenged because we have more officers that we've hired recently. Our equipment's fatiguing again, so we're looking to how can we come across and maybe start bringing in not 3 vehicles a year, maybe 4, and to work on that. At the same time, again, we have our budget committee to look at the numbers, listening to our police chief and our fire chief, where are their needs. Made a comment to Chief Mills, boy, with this growth in the South Parkway, we're going to look at Station 4. And his comment was, I want to get our 3 stations we have now fully staffed. And so again, listening to the professionals is going to give us the best direction for us to make those next steps.
Thank you. Amanda?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Jeff said. I think trying to wrap your head around how much a person should make when they're putting their life on the line is a really hard concept. But when it comes down to brass tacks, that's what we're trying to do. Luckily, City Council and the Budget Committee have been working on this, and they actually dedicated new revenue from the retired Triangle TIF to help increase pay. It was their hope to boost starting pay for emergency personnel and make us competitive again, which I think is a huge bonus. And I fully believe that we need to continue to work on this together to find the issue, by finding additional revenue streams. Part of sustaining a competitive wage is staying on top of this issue so we don't regress, not just now, but also for in the future. And I think if we do need to hire, we're going to rely on the fire department and police chiefs to let us know if that's what we need to do. But I do want all public safety personnel to feel that they're paid adequately and have exactly what they need. And I think this is a really good time for us. If it is something that we feel we need to do, we need to, again, listen to the fire department, police chief, and because we learn when we listen.
Thank you. Kelly?
To Jean's comment, I believe that, we don't want them to leave. And once they've been trained here, we've spent the money to train police and fire, first responders, in the ways, the Liberty way. You don't want them to leave once they've been trained. And I know that on the city website, $40,000 is approximately the starting salary. And like Amanda said too, when they put their life on the line daily, that's not enough. But I understand, budget constraints, and I would have to educate myself on that too, never being on the city council before. Also, I've been in that community. I like to say in a previous life, I was previously married to a police officer and a detective. So I know what it's like to see that person go out the door every day and not knowing what's going to happen and not really getting the compensation for it. But you want them to stick around. So somehow we have to get their salaries up a little bit more. I know they don't need to be at the top, but maybe just a little bit more would keep people here after they've been trained. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam?
All right. this is actually an issue that's very near and dear to me, as I have a family of come from a family of police officers. And I think when it comes down to budgeting, it's about making this a priority, about deciding where we want to be in terms of benchmarking, and about breaking the cycle that we've heard addressed by all the candidates thus far. I think coming up and looking at that portfolio of funding and how we get and maintain that, really working hard to project what it means to be competitive over a long-term, a 3, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5-year cycle, so that we can actually create the revenue streams to support that in the long term, so that we don't hit a 4-year cycle like we have now, where we're starting to become less competitive off our public safety. Because voter fatigue will set in if we keep asking them incrementally to just get us through the next 4 years. And then we have to go through the loss and retention issues before we get the problem solved. We have to go down the root cause. We have to set an expectation of ourselves and what we expect ourselves to provide. And then we have to work to create a budget that supports that. And I think that's something that my expertise in budget can help bring to this, to the council.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone, all of our candidates, for taking the time to answer those questions for us tonight. And thank you for everyone in the public who submitted questions for us for our candidates this evening. We will now ask each candidate for their closing remarks. The order of the remarks will be opposite that of our opening remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for these remarks, and we will start with Council Member from Ward 4, Gene Gentrup.
Well, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this forum, and frankly, for doing many other great things for this community, and especially in what has been a challenging last year. On the agenda of the city, much has been accomplished. Frankly, before I was on the council, while I was on the council, we do have a good chemistry, and we don't always agree on everything. Frankly, I'd be a little worried if we agreed on everything, but we have good, robust conversations, and whatever decisions we reach, they have been discussed thoroughly. Much has been accomplished, much more remains to be done. This country is addressing the roots and ravages of racism right now. Liberty should be no different. As difficult and as challenging as it may be, the cost of inaction is simply too high. Removing a monument intended to inflict pain is a good starting point, but should be only the beginning. I look forward to addressing those challenges over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council Member from Ward 3, Jeff Watt.
Thank you, Daniel. Again, thank you so much to the Chamber, Gail and Daniel, for putting on this event tonight. This has been very enjoyable, and it's very, I love hearing all of us speak and kind of give us our little analogies to these. The questions tonight, talking about equality of our community, the future of economic development, our positions on free speech, property tax versus sales tax for public safety, stance on the Second Amendment, the proposed to increase services in fire and police. These are amazing questions that we deal with every day of the week. Again, my joy of this job, as I'll call it, is working for this community. Liberty is amazing. We have a lot of dynamics. We have some shortcomings. Yes, we agree. Never say we're perfect. I'll never say I'm perfect, but we've got to continue the positive movement. Again, thinking of the three-legged stool, we've got to make sure we stay balanced for our economics so that we can maintain a good growth. As that growth occurs, that's going to allow us to bring in the increased services at the advice and the direction of our police chief and our fire chief. Again, listening to our community. Each of us should do it on our own. And yes, if we need, let's use a task force and let's figure out where our shortcomings are. Again, free speech and the Second Amendment. They're part of our Constitution, they're part of our Bill of Rights, if you want to look at it that way. And from our national level, at the local, they're just as important. We need to listen to everyone. Everyone has an opinion, and we need to go forward with those. And again, property tax versus sales tax. Again, what works best for our community is what we have been fighting hard and working hard to do for the last 12 years I've been on council. And I foresee that happening well into the future, regardless of how this council makeup is. And again, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoy representing this community and look forward to the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidate for council in Ward 2, Adam Travis.
Thank you. And I do want to start with a sincere thank you for the council for all of the conversations we've had here today, to this Chamber of Commerce for putting this event together, for city members of the community for just listening and having those conversations, because it is really this collaboration, this sharing of ideas. I think this is one of the great forums in which you get to see it and get to hear the conversations, but to realize it goes on every day. I've been really proud to serve as a member of the Sales Tax Oversight Committee for ULiberty for the last 4 years, and to learn more and to grow and to get to have those conversations with the fire staff, with the police staff, with the Parks and Recreation staff, and get to understand the unique challenges that go into running a community of over 30,000 people with all the injections we talked about in traffic that comes from outside the city. I do believe my unique brand of experience, bringing 13 years of federal service, looking at, analyzing, and working toward budgets and stewardship of your tax dollars, as well as my 4 years on Liberty with the sales tax oversight, do make me uniquely qualified to come in day one representing ULiberty, working toward our restart as we come back from this COVID pandemic, working toward making sure we ensure sustainability over a long-term environment, making sure we protect each of the little and underrepresented, and all of the different elements we can to make sure we create the best sense of community. And I've been extremely grateful just to be a part of the conversation. And I hope that in doing so, I might have earned your vote on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate for council, Ward 2, Kelly Wren Posel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good. Sorry, I had to click on something else. All right. Well, first of all, thank you to everyone who participated today, this evening. This was great. For Liberty, I want to foster inclusion, equity, and diversity by giving a voice to communities who feel they're not being heard. It's time to make that a priority in our city and create a commission to do that. I'm excited to see the new preservation plan roll out. I was involved in this while I was on the HDRC. Our architectural history is important to me, and Liberty's historic charm draws people to shop, own businesses, go to college, and move here. So I feel like it's very important. I'm an advocate for local small businesses and the women and men who have the inspiration and energy to follow their dream of starting a business. I'm inspired by my good friend who owns a small business that caters to other small businesses. Her businesses suffered during this pandemic because many of those small businesses closed. Nevertheless, she persisted. I love Liberty. It's not a suburb of Kansas City. It's got its own identity and character. And I've come to realize that I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit on the sidelines if I can get involved. Amanda Moore Medlock and Adam Travis are also those kinds of people. When I heard they were willing to run for office, I congratulated them and wished them luck. We need more people like them in our city. We also need everyone to vote. And when they do, I hope they have the confidence in me to vote for me on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate for council, Ward 2, Amanda Medlock.
Yes, so again, I just want to kind of reiterate what Jeff said, which is a massive thank you to the Chamber for allowing us to be part of this experience. I kind of walked in here thinking that I would gain a little bit of knowledge on some of the concerns of our constituents, and I gained a lot of insight into what their concerns are, like racial injustices and supporting the First and Second Amendments, property taxes, pay increases for emergency personnel. So it's good to have that, so I know what to look forward to in the future when I'm on council. I think that what I do is I constantly try to find the right answer to something. And if I don't know what the right answer is, I don't know the solution personally, what I do is I surround myself with others that I know will have the answer or that will be able to help us get to the answer. So ultimately, I'm willing to put in the legwork to figure out the roots of an issue before forming my opinion. I think that that's something that needs to happen more in our society. I do have an amazing, phenomenal backing of people who support that and have voiced their support for me, including the former mayor, Greg Knudsen, Missouri State Rep, Mark Ellebrock, local business owners like Darla Staten and Ray Moore, who's my mom. I have actually been endorsed by the Firefighters Local 42, which is our local firefighters, and the FOP Lodge 50, which is our local police department. And I've been so blessed to be surrounded by a majority of the council members growing up as well. Their expertise is really going to be key as I begin my role on council. And like I said before, I'm a firm believer in we learn when we listen, and I plan to do my part to support my constituents, even those with opposing opinions. I think that ultimately the goal is to achieve solidarity on council, and the goal, any goal that we put in place as a council.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Ward 1, Harold Phillips.
Thank you again. As everyone has expressed, thank you to you, Daniel, and to the Chamber for hosting this event. I hope it's helpful for all the voters in Liberty, and I hope there are a lot of them. Part of my role as an individual council member is to help the whole to be successful, the whole of us as elected local representatives. And I look forward to doing that again for the next 4 years. I like to think I can provide steady leadership, steady as you go kind of leadership as we are in challenging times as a city, as a state, and certainly as a country. Some smaller things that I'm interested in doing using that good influence, and I think Ms. Pozo mentioned that, the city just adopted an updated historic preservation plan. And one of the key agenda items of that is how to stabilize our older neighborhoods. I look forward to seeing how that's going to work, and we can implement that over the next series of years through incremental steps. Sidewalks are a problem. In the area where I live, in the older part, we've got sidewalks, but instead we walk in the streets because the streets are in better shape than the sidewalks are. But then there are other people throughout the city. There are no sidewalks, but kids are walking in the yards or walking in the street to get to school, sometimes on busy streets where it's totally unsafe to be doing that. How can we come up with a sidewalk improvement plan that impacts all people throughout the city, whether they've got bad, crummy sidewalks or whether there are no sidewalks at all, for safety and for health? I'm also very interested in anything that we can do that's going to spur those local business people, especially those who are in the square, creating a vibrant place to bring people in from outside the city and certainly from within the city as a great place to shop, to eat, to meet people, and to fellowship, and all the kind of networking that we hope is going to be kicking back into full gear as COVID gets under control. I look forward to serving on the city council again for the next 4 years, and also being with men and women who are candidates tonight and those who are elected. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And candidate for mayor of the city of Liberty, Mayor Lyndall Brenton.
It says the host has stopped my video.
Well, we can still hear you, sir.
Okay, well,
We'll see about the video, but we can still hear you.
okay. Well, now it says start my video. Let's try that. There we go.
There you are, sir.
The host let me back. So in closing, I would again like to thank the Liberty Area Chamber of Commerce, the candidates, and the citizens joining us tonight. I appreciate and am proud to be endorsed by the Liberty Fire Emergency Medical Services, International Firefighters Local 42, by the Liberty Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 50, by the Greater Kansas City Home Builders Association. I'm proud to be endorsed by 6 mayors that preceded me: Greg Knutson, Bob Steinkamp, Steve Hawkins, Bob Saunders, Glenna Todd, and Russ Weathers. And finally, I'm humbled and proud to be endorsed by the hundreds of property owners with my signs that you see throughout the city. As I said, I'm seeking re-election to continue the renaissance and the unprecedented economic growth in Liberty. If you think back 8 years ago when I became the mayor, and think of the progress and the change that has occurred, the positive change and progress that has occurred. We had an underperforming Kmart Sears Grand Center, solved the problem, found and opened Liberty Commons. The gateway of Kansas Street M152 was a traffic bottleneck, and worked with the Missouri Department of Transportation, the Mid-America Regional Council, the city of Kansas City. We found the resources, solved the problem. We had an outdated and antiquated animal shelter, found the resources, solved the problem. The historic square was in disrepair, renovated the downtown square, found the resources, solved the problem. That's the legacy of my tenure as mayor. We identify problems and we solve the problems, and we will continue to do that in the next 2 years if I'm elected mayor. The city of Liberty is a recognized leader in the Northland. This city has over 31,000 residents and a local community of 60,000 residents within the Liberty School District boundaries. The high-performing elected officials, some of which you've heard from this evening, and the outstanding city staff professionals that we have, headed by the mayor, provide a complex variety of services that impact citizens' lives every day, from police, fire, and EMS protection to clean water, sewage treatment, roads and public works, parks and recreation, economic development, city planning, code enforcement, building inspection, and many, many more services. Running a city the size and the complexity of Liberty requires qualified and experienced leaders. I believe I am the mayoral candidate best equipped to meet the challenges and continue delivering the results that you, the citizens, expect and deserve. I'd appreciate your vote for mayor on April 6th and appreciate your participation here this evening.
Thank you very much. In closing tonight, I would just like to say thank you to all of our candidates. Thank you especially to everyone that attended, to the staff of the Liberty Area Chamber of Commerce. You have worked very hard to put all of this together. And my name is Daniel Doring. I wish all of you candidates the best of luck on April the 6th, and everyone have a good evening. Thank you very much.